That is. As Xin Qingzhu saw this exaggerated sword mark, his eyes gradually brightened. It's Senior Sword Saint's sword intent. Lin Chia declared with certainty. Quick! Steer the boat over there. And Qingyu immediately adjusted the direction, and the exploration vessel traced an arc through the mist, heading straight toward the island, finally docking at the edge of the island where the sword mark was located. Lin Chia and the others quickly disembarked, and only after personally setting foot on this island did they truly realize how terrifying this sword mark actually was. The sword mark began from the east and extended all the way to the westernmost edge of the island. Even with Lin Chia's current spiritual perception, he couldn't grasp the full picture of this single sword strike, and it was even more impossible to see clearly with the naked eye in the mist. Lin Chia made a rough estimate that this sword strike was at least 10 kilometers long. The sword mark sank deep into the island like a heavenly moat. If you casually kicked a pebble down into it, it would take several seconds before you could hear it hit the bottom. Senior Sword Saint's sword intent is even more terrifying than when we encountered it in the mist earlier, Lin Chia said, standing at the edge of the sword mark, sensing the sword intent emanating from within. And Qingyu crouched down, scooped up some soil with his fingers and held it before his eyes, a flash of gray light passing through his pupils. Judging from the traces in the soil, this sword strike was probably left about a month ago. A month ago? Lin Chia was stunned. A month ago the full-scale divine war had not yet completely erupted, and Xia had not yet moved against Egypt's Sun City and Asgard. So who was Zhou Ping fighting with to leave such a terrifying sword mark? There are residual divine power fluctuations. As everyone was puzzled, the expressionless blonde man standing at the back spoke calmly. 3 of them, all at the level of major gods from the same pantheon. Hearing this, Lin Chia and the others' expressions changed slightly. Senior Sword Saint fought with 3 major gods here? They probably just passed through here during their battle, and Qingyu said, pushing up his glasses. If it had truly been a battle between 4 beings at the major god level, this island would have been reduced to ashes long ago. They were likely fighting while flying through the air, and during that time, Senior Sword Saint delivered a strike that happened to land on this island. Lin Chia looked up at the sky, trying his best to reconstruct the scene from a month ago in his mind. From the available clues, it seemed that Zhou Ping was being pursued by 3 major gods when they passed through the sea area. But why would 3 major gods from the same pantheon be hunting him? What had he done? And which pantheon had made the move? Since these traces were left a month ago, Senior Sword Saint has certainly left by now, and Qingyu said, carrying the black coffin on his back and shaking his head helplessly. With his speed, a month is enough time for him to appear in any corner of the world. It's unlikely he's still here. If we continue searching along this route, we probably won't find anything. Lin Chia sighed. Let's go. Senior Sword Saint should not be in mortal danger. Let's find the Ark first, then make further plans. Everyone returned to the exploration vessel and continued along their original route. Lin Chia sat in the cabin, constantly extending his spiritual perception to cover the surrounding waters. Although the probability was slim, as long as there was even a slight chance, he still wanted to try searching. Unfortunately, until the exploration vessel approached their destination, he still found nothing. It was now deep night, with the mist obscuring the sky, not a trace of starlight or moonlight visible. In the pitch-black darkness where one couldn't see their hand in front of their face, the mist and the sea seemed to merge into one, making it impossible to discern directions. The cabin gently rocked with the waves, the faint light from the candle on the table illuminating a corner of the dark cabin. And Qingyu steered the vessel, relying on his terrifying memory and analysis of magnetic fields to precisely control the boat in the endless darkness, inching toward the distance. Strange. Lin Chia stood by the window, half his face tinged yellow in the dim candlelight, his brows slightly furrowed. What's wrong? Zhang Er asked, puzzled. Since we entered this sea area, it seems no mysteries have appeared, Lin Chia said thoughtfully. All the way from Xia to here, mysteries would appear at regular intervals trying to destroy this boat. Even those that held back from attacking were hiding in the deep sea, secretly watching us. But for the past half hour, within the range of my spiritual perception, not a single mystery has appeared in this sea area, as if they've collectively disappeared. We're almost there. Michael, who had been sitting to the side with his eyes closed, slowly opened them and spoke. Creak. In the darkness, the hull made a muffled sound as it was struck by a huge wave, and the cramped cabin fell into momentary silence as the candle flame flickered. But there's nothing around except seawater. Lin Chia closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a moment, detecting no land or islands. The place we're going to is not on the ground. Is it in the sky? Michael shook his head slightly. Where exactly are we going? Now that we're near the destination, you should be able to tell us, right? Shen Qingzhu frowned. Michael turned his head, those furnace-like golden eyes glancing at the darkness outside the porthole, and slowly uttered 2 words. Heaven. Heaven. Lin Chia was stunned for a moment. Is that the place recorded in your holy scripture? Heaven is the divine realm of my holy church's pantheon, the afterlife destination that countless souls yearn for, a pure land of ultimate bliss, and also the origin of all light and purity in the world. Michael was silent for a moment before speaking again. Countless ages ago the other angels and the Holy Lord all lived there, and the Ark is also stored within. So the Ark was hidden in the divine realm of the Western Holy Church. No wonder Michael had said earlier that the gods of Xia couldn't enter it, and only mortals like Lin Chia could set foot there. Gods from other nations entering the Holy Church's heaven would most likely be seen as sacrilege in their eyes. So where is it? Heaven has no physical form. Cannot be seen on any land or in the sky or deep sea. It exists only in the purest sanctuary of the heart within all living beings. What does that mean? Qingyu asked in surprise. Heaven is in our hearts. How do we get there? In a domain blessed by divine miracles, devoutly chant the Holy Lord's name, question your inner heart, find the purest and most immaculate light in your heart, and you will automatically enter heaven. Michael's gaze swept over the dark waters below the boat. This sea area is the location of what was once a divinely blessed domain. So you're saying that in this sea area, we need to find the light within each of our hearts to enter heaven? Lin Chia murmured. First time I've heard of such a mystical way to enter a divine realm. Heaven is indeed different from other divine realms in the world, Michael said calmly. To enter heaven, this is the only way. Finding the pure land in your heart is necessary to enter the kingdom of heaven, I understand, but why must one recite the name of your Western holy religion's Lord? Reciting the Lord's name is to resonate with the kingdom of heaven, to perceive its existence and to lower the difficulty of entering it, Michael said calmly. If your heart is pure enough without distractions and you can step into the kingdom of heaven directly, then naturally you don't need to recite the Lord's name. However, except for newborn infants, very few people can achieve this. Lin Chia nodded. I understand. So when do we go in? Now. Michael stood up from his seat, his figure flashing outside the cabin, rapidly growing taller, and in the blink of an eye transformed into a giant. 6 pure white wings extended from his back, restoring his original form as a seraph. He was enveloped in sacred golden light, like a sun, dispelling the fog and darkness over the sea. Golden mist rolled continuously, so bright that one could hardly open their eyes. He hovered in the air, his furnace-like eyes sweeping across the cabin, and spoke softly. I'll wait for you in the kingdom of heaven. Hurry up. His 6 wings behind him trembled slightly, and his figure instantly disappeared, the endless golden light receding like a tide, and the world once again fell into pitch-black silence. Inside the cabin, Lin Chia and the others exchanged glances, all seeing the helplessness in each other's eyes. Let's begin. Qingyu placed Jiang Er's coffin beside him and sat down. Lin Chia and Shen Qingzhu also sat cross-legged on the deck, their bodies gently swaying with the boat. Lin Chia slowly closed his eyes. Clear away distractions, find the pure land of the mind, Lin Chia murmured. Back in the training camp, instructors had taught methods to empty the mind and quickly enter a meditative state. Although he wasn't sure if the pure land of the mind required for entering the kingdom of heaven was any different from this process, the part about clearing distractions should be correct. He took a deep breath, imagining a crystal-clear piece of crystal in his mind, gradually emptying his thoughts, sitting motionless like a stone statue. Lin Chia's consciousness quickly sank, thoughts passing through his mind like falling stars at the edge of the sky, flashing by without any of them able to disturb his focus or divert his attention. At this moment he seemed to be in a white corridor with tightly closed doors on both sides. He stared intently at the door at the end of the corridor and decisively walked forward, not looking at any of the surrounding doors. Even when occasional distracting thoughts surfaced, he quickly suppressed them. If this had been before he used the ghost god to guard the divine steel, Lin Chia might have found it extremely difficult to clear his mind of distractions, break through confusion and find his inner Pure Land. But after experiencing death and rebirth, his thoughts had become clear and transparent, and the path beneath his feet was clearer than ever before. Soon Lin Chia stood before the door in the deepest part of his heart, reached out and gently grasped the doorknob. In the swaying cabin, four figures sat with their eyes tightly closed, motionless, with only the sound of rolling waves and the creaking of the deck echoing in the air. Suddenly, a faint white light flashed and Jiang Er, lying in the coffin, vanished into thin air as if she had never been there. Seconds later, Lin Chia, sitting in the center, slightly parted his lips, seemingly reciting something softly, and a white light also flashed over him, making his entire person disappear. Lin Chia felt a sudden brightness around him. Opening his eyes, he found himself standing on a patch of white clouds. To be precise, this was a surface formed by countless layers of clouds. The cloud vapor rolled, revealing hidden white bricks within. His feet stood in the cloud vapor as he looked up at the sky. The azure sky was so close that it seemed he could touch it just by reaching out. Not far from him, a golden angel with 6 wings on its back was quietly hovering in the air, emanating a sacred light from its entire body. "Welcome to the kingdom of heaven," Michael said calmly. "This is the kingdom of heaven?" Lin Chia looked around but saw nothing except white clouds and blue sky for the time being. "Oh." A girl's surprised voice came from behind Lin Chia. He turned to look and saw Jiang Er wearing a white dress, standing barefoot among the clouds, looking down at her hands with surprise in her eyes. "My physical body didn't come, but my magnetic field did? Why is that?" "Because the dead cannot enter the kingdom of heaven," Michael explained calmly from the sky. "Your physical body has no life force and cannot come here, but your consciousness survives in the form of a magnetic field, so it temporarily separated your magnetic field from your flesh and only admitted your magnetic field." Jiang Er nodded thoughtfully. Moments later, another white light flashed, and Qingyu appeared beside Lin Chia, slowly opening his eyes, also curiously examining his surroundings. Seeing his arrival, Lin Chia suddenly had a thought. If the condition for entering the kingdom of heaven was purity of mind, would the order in which they entered reflect the amount of distractions in their hearts? From the current situation, Jiang Er's mind was the purest, with almost no distractions, followed by himself who had experienced death and rebirth. And Qingyu entered third, indicating that he probably had quite a few distractions in his mind, most likely related to his thirst for knowledge. But where was Qingyu? Lin Chia looked around but didn't see Qingyu. "Where's Qingyu?" he asked. "Don't know," and Qingyu shook his head. "When I came in, he seemed to still be sitting outside. It seems Qingyu has quite a few distractions in his mind." Lin Chia nodded slightly. "Then we'll wait for him for a while." In the cabin, waves crashed against the deck, making a low hum. The candle on the table was about to burn out, flickering continuously. In the empty cabin, only a figure in a deep red cloak remained sitting on the ground. His brows were slightly furrowed, his fists on his knees involuntarily clenched, and beads of sweat seeped from his temples. Qingyu suddenly opened his eyes, his breathing becoming heavy. He paused for a moment, looking down at his hands, his expression extremely complex. His distractions were too many. Whenever Qingyu tried to enter a meditative state and empty his mind, the scenes of that tragic battle at the Pamir Plateau would uncontrollably surge into his mind. Anger, self-blame, and a sense of powerlessness like surging waves made his mind unstable. He couldn't empty himself, nor could he enter the pure land of the mind, just as he had never been able to enter a peaceful sleep these past few days. "How long has it passed?" Lin Chia looked at the gradually darkening sky and turned to ask. "Half an hour," and Qingyu answered. "Half an hour." Lin Chia's brows slightly furrowed. Did something unexpected happen to Brother Zhuai? Logically speaking, with Qingyu's temperament, entering the pure land of the mind by eliminating distractions shouldn't be difficult. If he hadn't entered after half an hour, either something unexpected happened on the ship, or his mind was filled with too many distractions. Based on Lin Chia's understanding of Shin Qingzhu, he was more inclined to believe the former. There was no unexpected situation. He has too many distractions in his mind and cannot enter. Michael's eyes swept through the void as he spoke calmly. The three of them froze in place. Brother Zhuai has too many distractions? How is that possible? That's the Brother Zhuai who had fought for his life and struggled through life and death. If asked who in the entire team had the most mature mindset, everyone would immediately choose Shin Qingzhu. Lin Chia really couldn't imagine what kind of distractions could restrain this man who disregarded even life and death. Lin Chia and An Qingyu exchanged glances, both seeing confusion in each other's eyes. Only Jiang Er floated silently in the air as if lost in thought about something. We don't have much time. If he can't come in, I'll let him wait on the ship. After obtaining the Ark, you can reunite with him. Michael casually traced a string of characters in the air, which transformed into a golden light and disappeared into the void. After doing this, he gently fluttered his wings and a golden light surged out like a tide, enveloping the three behind him, then flew toward the center of the cloud layer under the dusky sunlight. Above the sea, in the endless darkness and mist, the exploration ship rocked with the rolling waves. Inside the silent cabin, a figure still stubbornly sat cross-legged on the floor. The yellowish candlelight illuminated his face, with large beads of sweat dripping to the ground. Shin Qingzhu frowned deeply, his face pale from excessive mental exertion. As the ship violently rocked, the candle on the table burned to its end and suddenly extinguished, plunging the entire cabin into darkness. Heavy breathing echoed in the cabin. After a moment, Shin Qingzhu slowly opened his eyes, showing unprecedented fatigue on his face. He took 2 deep breaths, glanced at the time in the center of the cabin and clenched his fists tightly. Just as he was about to try entering heaven again, a golden light shot out from the void and hovered in front of Shin Qingzhu. It was a string of characters Shin Qingzhu didn't recognize, but the moment it appeared, a message was transmitted into his mind. No need to try again. Wait here. Shin Qingzhu froze in place. Whoosh. The golden characters burned up in the air, the golden light particles dissipated, and Shin Qingzhu's pale, stunned face sank back into darkness. The creaking sound of the ship's hull echoed in the dark cabin. Shin Qingzhu stood still like a sculpture for a long time before finally giving a self-mocking smile, leaning against the door and weakly sitting on the ground. He took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it and exhaled a cloud of smoke with apparent ease, though his left fist unconsciously clenched. He looked up at the churning mist at the stern and fell silent. But, after an unknown amount of time, the muffled sound of a fist hitting the deck echoed through the silent cabin. Heaven. A golden light flashed continuously in the sky, speeding toward the depths of heaven. Michael's speed was so fast that Lin Chia and the others, enveloped in the golden light, could only see countless blurry shadows passing beneath them before arriving at a flat, barren open space. Lin Chia's feet landed on the cloud and he looked around to see white clouds encircling this open space, like a slowly rotating white tower, connecting from the cloud layer beneath their feet all the way to the dusky sky. This space enclosed by white clouds was roughly 100 kilometers wide, like a city. Is this heaven? An Qingyu asked in surprise. This is the Holy Lord's residence. The area outside the clouds is the true heaven that belongs to the souls, Michael explained calmly. Lin Chia was stunned. Such a large area was just Yelon's residence? How big was the entire heaven then? Thinking about the shadows that had just flashed before his eyes, Lin Chia's eyebrows raised slightly. If it took that long to fly even at the speed of a seraph, the scale of this heaven was probably far beyond their imagination. Heaven is not material, so physical measurements like size and area are meaningless here. From a spiritual perspective, heaven itself is infinite. Michael flapped his wings, flying toward the center of the open space, scanning the surroundings as if searching for something. How mystical. Lin Chia marveled inwardly again, and the image of the figure walking out of the 6th ward appeared in his mind, prompting him to ask, Yelon, where did the Holy Lord of your Western holy religion go? Michael's form paused slightly. He left. Left. Hearing these words, Lin Chia didn't know how to interpret them. Michael stopped, looked up at the sky, raised his hand and gently pointed upward. He is there. The three followed his gesture and looked up, seeing nothing but the boundless sky. They were stunned at first, then as if realizing something they exclaimed in unison. The moon. Michael nodded slightly. Long ago when the Cthulhu gods first descended to Earth, some of Earth's supreme gods discovered the anomaly and joined forces to try to eliminate them. But their power was too bizarre, so the gods could only change their approach, attempting to expel or seal them instead. Finally, several supreme beings managed to lure the Cthulhu gods to the moon. After a great battle, the Holy Lord shattered the moon and, sacrificing himself and the essence of heaven, transformed into the new moon to forcibly seal the Cthulhu gods. Since then, heaven has fallen, and I have been stationed on the moon in accordance with the Holy Lord's command, preventing the Cthulhu gods from breaking the seal and endangering Earth. After hearing Michael's words, Lin Chia and the others were shocked to their core, their mouths uncontrollably hanging open. The seal on the moon was left by your Holy Lord? Lin Chia's eyes were filled with disbelief. Is it strange? Michael calmly spoke. My Lord is merciful and loving, has compassion for all living beings, and the Western holy religion carries the world's most profound faith. When this great disaster befalls all living beings, only the divine essence of our kingdom of heaven can suppress them. If your Holy Lord takes the essence of heaven to the moon, what happens to heaven? Nchinyu asked, puzzled. Heaven. Michael slowly closed his eyes, turned to face the white cloud walls surrounding him, and with a powerful beat of his 6 pure white wings, the clouds shrouding the Holy Lord's residence were instantly dispersed. Lin Chia and the others turned to look, their pupils suddenly contracting. As the white clouds dissipated, the golden sunlight fell upon the pure white ground. Broken giant pillars stood reaching to the sky, damaged palaces scattered across the cloud tops, weapons stained with dark red blood randomly stuck into the ground, seemingly draped in a layer of golden gauze under the sunset's reflection. At the horizon's edge, a massive black sword was thrust diagonally into heaven's ground, jutting out like a mountain peak. Deep red light surged from beneath where the sword had pierced heaven, like magma about to erupt, violently churning. As far as the eye could see, everything was devastated. Heaven exists no more. Michael's voice echoed in everyone's ears. Lin Chia stood stunned for a long while before coming back to his senses. How could it become like this just from losing its essence? Lin Chia murmured. The divine essence was indeed indispensable to a divine realm, but the scene before them was clearly not just about the decline of essence. This was obviously the aftermath of some catastrophic war. And Qingyu squinted at the black sword in the distance and the deep red flames surging beneath it, asking curiously, "What's beneath that sword?" "Hell." Michael's eyes opened slightly, showing a reminiscent look. "Countless ages ago an angel betrayed my lord, cut off a corner of heaven's essence, fell into darkness, built his own divine realm, created hell on earth and absorbed countless evil gods. Our heaven carries the world's most profound faith, while hell carries the most ferocious evil thoughts. It's like heaven's shadow, always existing in the reflection of the pure land of the mind, that is, beneath our feet. Before the Holy Lord took away heaven's essence, he anticipated that if heaven disappeared, hell would become a great harm to the world, so he led us to invade hell first. In that divine war, I hunted the fallen angel Lucifer for 3 days and 3 nights. Just when I was about to kill him, the power of faith within me rapidly declined, sharply reducing my battle strength, allowing him to escape. Only then did I realize what happened. When I returned to heaven, I discovered that both heaven and hell were completely empty. In that divine war, except for a few weak demons who survived and escaped from hell, none of the other angels or demons of divine rank survived. By then, my Lord had already taken heaven's essence and sacrificed himself to become the new moon, suppressing the Cthulhu pantheon. If I hadn't lost the faith enhancement from the essence, I wouldn't have let Lucifer escape like that. Lin Chia and the others gazed at the devastated heaven before them, their expressions incredibly complex. So that's how it is. Lin Chia had been confused. If Michael and Lucifer both existed, then the mythical figures from Western religion should have descended as well, but so far he hadn't seen any other angels or demons, nor had he heard any news about this divine realm itself. Now it seemed that heaven had vanished from the world countless ages ago to seal Cthulhu, and before leaving, it had even taken away many demons from hell. Lin Chia hesitated for a moment. "May I ask a question?" "Ask." After your holy lord took the essence and transformed into the new moon, is he considered alive or dead? Lin Chia asked carefully. Lin Chia knew this question might be offensive, but with Yelon in the hospital in his mind, he wanted to understand Yelon's condition and the cause of his illness to treat it more effectively. Michael's brow furrowed slightly. He is still alive. Hearing Michael's tone so certain, Lin Chia raised an eyebrow. Just as he was about to say something more, Michael spoke again. His physical body became the moon, his soul became the seal, always floating in space. As long as the seal doesn't completely shatter and the moon still exists, he isn't dead. He's just watching over humanity in a different form. Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. It sounded like Yelon's situation was much more complicated than the previous patient's. He wondered how the Divine Mental Hospital had managed to bring his soul into a ward. However, at that level, there were too many things beyond Lin Chia's understanding, and he couldn't determine in the short term what had caused Yelon's current condition. It seemed he could only start with the patient himself. It's been so long, but the sky still hasn't darkened at all? Jiang Er looked at the still pale golden sky and asked curiously. Heaven is a realm of light. It only has dawn, noon, and dusk. Darkness doesn't belong here. Michael turned around and instead of using his wings to fly, walked directly on the ground toward the center of the Holy Lord's residence. The golden sunset reflected between the surrounding white clouds, like streams of golden rivers flowing around. With 6 wings on his back, he walked slowly forward. Even though the ground beneath was a desolate ruin, he still moved like a devout believer coming to meet the Holy Lord, his expression solemn and reverent. Lin Chia and the others stepped on the golden flowing clouds, also not using flight, following closely behind. After walking through the ruins of the Holy Lord's residence for more than 10 minutes, something different finally appeared in their view. At the horizon among the golden flowing clouds, several broken giant pillars surrounded the white ground. Half of a shattered palace roof lay tilted on the ground, surrounded by small debris, a complete mess. In this ruined palace, perhaps the only intact thing was the golden platform in the center, and the wooden box placed upon it. The moment he saw this shattered palace, Michael's eyes narrowed. Before Lin Chia could say anything, Michael transformed into a golden light, flying into the ruined palace and standing before the golden platform. He reached out with both hands, grabbed the lid of the wooden box and quickly opened it. Due to the angle, Lin Chia and the others couldn't see what was inside the box, only Michael's iceberg-like face visibly darkening. This was the first time Lin Chia had seen Michael's expression change. A sense of foreboding flashed through their minds, and they quickly rushed into the palace. Lin Chia stood at the edge of the platform, his gaze falling on the empty wooden box, his eyes fixed. He turned to look at Michael's grim face and after hesitating for a moment, tentatively asked, "What was inside?" "The Ark of the Covenant," Michael slowly said. "The Ark of the Covenant is gone." When they heard this answer, Lin Chia and the others felt their hearts sink simultaneously. The Ark was their ultimate goal for this journey, and it was something critically important to Disya. If they couldn't bring the Ark back, not only would their trip be completely wasted, but they would also have a difficult time explaining this to the Heavenly Venerable. Gone? How could it be gone? Lin Chia asked in confusion. Could you have remembered the wrong place? Michael shook his head. Impossible. The Ark is too important. It used to be kept by the Holy Lord's side at all times. After the Holy Lord transformed into the moon, it was never moved. It should be right here. He raised his head, looking around at the shattered palace, his furnace-like eyes narrowing. This palace shouldn't be like this. Someone has been here. Wasn't this palace destroyed during the heaven and hell war of your time? No. Although the divine war was brutal, the fighting never spread to the Holy Lord's residence. Before I went to the moon to watch over humanity, it was still intact. Nearby, Qingyu frowned slightly, crouched down in a corner of the palace, picked up some broken bricks and gray light flickered in his eyes. A moment later he slowly stood up and nodded. That's right, these fracture marks are all very fresh, probably left within the last week. 1 week. Lin Chia's gaze swept across the shattered palace. After pondering for a moment, he gently pressed his hand against the void. A brilliant magic array opened before him. The moment this magic array appeared, a look of surprise flashed in Michael's eyes. He stared at the magic array, his gaze seemingly tracing the spatial changes of the summoning magic, searching for something. The next moment, a black shadow emerged from the magic array, with a crimson eye slowly opening on its forehead. Caretaker 007 Black Eye, willing to serve the director with utmost loyalty, Black Eye bowed slightly and spoke politely. Use your ability to look into the past and see who has been here during this past week, Lin Chia said calmly. Black Eye's Eye of Secrets could explore the past and future of inanimate objects within a week, making it most effective for finding people or items. Yes. The crimson eye on Black Eye's forehead looked at the shattered palace before him. Mysterious light flickered between the black pupils, and in its vision, time began to rapidly rewind in the palace. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 6 days, 7 days. During the first few days of the rewind, the palace remained a ruin with no changes. But when Black Eye's Eye of Secrets began to peer into the 7th day of the past, something extraordinary happened. In the rewinding shadows of the palace, Black Eye vaguely saw a figure standing on the ruins. He seemed to sense something and actually turned his head, his gaze piercing through endless time and space to make eye contact. Bang! Black Eye's body, as if struck by an invisible hammer, flew backward more than 10 meters and crashed heavily onto the ground outside the palace ruins. Black Eye. This sudden incident shocked Lin Chia. He quickly rushed forward to help Black Eye up. From that crimson eye, streams of black blood were flowing out. Michael seemed to sense something and abruptly turned to look at the emptiness beside the platform, his furnace-like eyes narrowing. This aura. Black Eye, are you all right? Lin Chia looked at Black Eye's shadow twisting in pain, his brows tightly knitted. I'm fine, just suffered some backlash. Black Eye closed his crimson eye, his voice extremely weak. He saw me. Who? The person standing here 7 days ago. No, that was definitely not a human. That was a deity. Black Eye spoke with certainty. Although I couldn't see his appearance clearly, judging by his aura, that's not a power an ordinary deity could possess. That was a supreme god. And he carried a repulsive evil aura. Supreme god? When Lin Chia heard these 3 words, his expression immediately darkened. He turned to look at Michael, who was standing at the edge of the platform, contemplating the emptiness before him. He's right, Michael slowly spoke. That aura just now could only come from a supreme. But how could other supreme gods enter heaven? The confusion in Lin Chia's eyes deepened. Black Eye said he carried an evil aura. Can someone like that pass through the pure land of hearts to enter heaven? Michael pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, Evil gods cannot enter heaven. If he could enter here, he must have come through another place. Michael's gaze fell on the horizon, on the giant sword-like crevice churning with deep red magma. He entered heaven through hell? And Qingyu seemed to realize something. The boundary between heaven and hell was broken during the divine war countless ages ago. If he first found the entrance to hell, he could pass through hell to reach heaven. That's the only possibility. So what do we do now? Zhang Er asked, floating in the air. Michael's eyes narrowed, all 6 wings behind him fully extended, nearly blocking the dim sky. His form rose from the ground, and those golden eyes erupted with divine might as brilliant and scorching as the sun. A dazzling golden domain like a storm, rapidly expanded with him at its center, reaching the horizon in an instant. Terrifying divine might surged from the 6-winged figure in the sky like a tidal wave. Lin Chia and the others were mentally shaken, barely able to support their bodies. Even though Michael's target wasn't them, just the scattered aftermath was pushing them to their limits. What is he doing? And Qingyu asked through gritted teeth while resisting the seraph's divine might. It's mortal divine domain. Under this golden domain, Lin Chia, as the proxy, couldn't control the golden light igniting in his eyes. He's searching for that supreme god. A moment later, Michael, suspended in the air, seemed to sense something. He slightly lowered his head, his gaze seemingly piercing through the void to the deepest part of hell. You dare to still hide here? In Michael's eyes, full of scorching heat and majesty, flashed a cold, killing intent. Those 6 immense, pure white wings that blocked the sky trembled slightly in the air, and his form instantly flashed through the void, disappearing from heaven. The terrifying pressure vanished with Michael's disappearance. Specks of remaining golden light dispersed in the air, and Lin Chia let out a long breath. And Qingyu wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at the sky with lingering fear. Where did he go? Probably to hunt down the supreme god who stole the ark, Lin Chia said thoughtfully. But which supreme would climb from hell to heaven to steal the ark? Before Lin Chia could finish speaking, the ground of heaven beneath their feet suddenly began to shake violently. Hell! Under the pitch-black sky, deep red magma rolled between fractured cliffs. The oppressive red glow reflected on the dim black clouds, bathing the entire sky in a bloody hue. A figure pierced through the void, standing with 6 wings on the highest magma peak. Michael's furnace-like eyes surveyed the surroundings, golden light spreading outward from him like a tide, resembling a golden sun hanging beneath the blood-colored sky. Did you think hiding here would conceal you from me? Michael coldly snorted, reaching up to grasp the empty sky above. A massive golden sword materialized in his hand, and he swung it toward the towering magma peak before him. A golden light flashed across heaven and earth in an instant. A fine golden thread appeared on the deep red mountain, followed by endless golden light surging from within, causing the entire peak to explode from the center. Boom! A dull thunderous sound accompanied black smoke swirling in the air. An old man wearing tattered divine robes emerged from beneath the mountain peak, looking grimly at Michael hovering above. The old man's left eye was unfathomably deep, while his right socket was empty except for countless crimson worms writhing within, forming an eerie red eyeball. Odin. Michael's gaze fell on that red eyeball, his brow slightly furrowing. I wondered why I sensed a trace of Cthulhu pantheon, so you've already submitted to them. A cold glint flashed in Odin's eyes as he spoke calmly. They are they and I am I. This is merely cooperation. After escaping from the moral heavenly lord and Vishnu, Odin couldn't return to Asgard and had been hiding in the ruins of hell. He never expected Michael would descend to Earth and return here. Cooperation. Michael's gaze seemed to penetrate Odin's mind. Years ago when my lord sealed Cthulhu on the moon, you participated. You should know how terrifying those monsters are. Cooperating with them? Do you really think they'll help you? You've already reached the pinnacle with combat power arguably the strongest on Earth. Why take this risk? Odin slowly closed his eyes and shook his head. You wouldn't understand. Michael gripped the golden sword as divine power surged around him. Mortal divine domain instantly covered every corner of hell. Like a holy angel about to deliver judgment, he asked accusingly. Then let me ask differently. Was stealing the Ark done at the instruction of the Cthulhu pantheon? How did they know what was inside? Odin raised an eyebrow but remained silent. 50 years ago, was it also you who destroyed the lunar seal? Odin continued his silence. Seeing Odin had no intention of speaking, Michael's divine power grew increasingly brilliant. Holding the golden sword, he shook his head. Fine, whatever your purpose is, anyone connected to those things on the moon must die. Michael's 6 wings, which blotted out the sky, fluttered once. His form instantly vanished and a golden sword light cut through space, slashing directly at Odin's neck. Odin stood motionless in his tattered white divine robes. On his wrinkled face, the crimson worm eye slowly rotated as he calmly spoke. If we were on the moon with you standing on the remnants of heaven's origin, I would indeed be no match for you. But on Earth, even with your mortal divine domain, killing me won't be so easy. Odin lightly raised his palm and the surrounding space-time rapidly distorted. The brilliant golden sword hadn't yet touched Odin's neck when it was firmly gripped by a wrinkled, spotted, aged hand, as if blocked by an insurmountable wall, unable to advance even slightly. Michael's eyes narrowed and a golden light flashed across the blade. Slash. The golden sword bypassed the invisible wall, directly cleaving Odin's hand in half. Odin's pupils contracted and in the next moment he teleported dozens of miles away under the sky. He frowned as he looked at the 6-winged seraph in the distance and slowly lowered his severed hand. Countless red insects crawled out from his flesh, twisting to repair the broken hand, restoring it to normal within moments. So this is miracle. They say you, Michael, are heaven's greatest warrior. Now I see the reputation is well-deserved. Odin's voice echoed across the sky, his deep left eye flashing with murderous intent. As long as you live, the lunar seal is almost impossible to break. You think you can help those monsters kill me? Michael held the golden sword in one hand, his pure white six wings gently flapping under the deep red sky. His face, illuminated by light, was as cold as an iceberg. You are not capable of that. His six wings fluttered lightly and his form vanished again. Odin's eyes flashed with brilliance as if contemplating something. After a moment he raised his fingertip and lightly traced a line across the deep red sky. In the dim sky, a white crack shattered open. Countless gray-white ashes like pouring snow fell and scattered throughout hell. Michael flew halfway up before stopping. He caught a piece of ash in his hand, his brow slightly furrowing. "What is this?" Odin glanced at him, then pulled his hands apart in midair, forcibly tearing open a gap in hell. His form flickered and disappeared without a trace. "You cannot escape." Seeing Odin leave, Michael immediately transformed into a golden light and followed closely. Based on current intelligence, it was Odin who destroyed the lunar seal 50 years ago and stole the Ark. Michael could not possibly allow him to leave. After the two supreme gods broke through Hell's borders in succession, this former realm of evil gods once again fell into deathly silence. Only the drifting ashes from the crack in the sky remained, falling like snowflakes onto the deep red earth. After an unknown period, black shadows emerged from various corners of hell, standing beneath this ash snow, like devout believers receiving baptism. Heaven. As the auras of the two supreme gods departed, the ground finally stopped shaking. Lin Chier and his two companions stood before the empty wooden box, exchanging glances, each seeing the bitterness in the other's eyes. "I wonder if the Seraph can recover the Ark," and Qingyu sighed. "Matters at that level are beyond our ability to intervene." Lin Chia shook his head. "Let's return to the ship and wait for news. Brother Zhuai is still waiting for us." The three stood around the edge of the platform, looking at each other as the air suddenly fell into silence. "Did he mention how we're supposed to get back?" Jiang Er tentatively asked. "I don't think so." Lin Chia's expression was extremely strange. "He only told us how to enter, not how to leave," and Qingyu was silent for a moment. "Perhaps the process is the same? We are the ones who abandoned distractions and opened the door to a pure spiritual realm to enter, so by the same logic perhaps we just need to close that door to get out." Lin Chia sat cross-legged. "Whatever the case, let's try it first." The three closed their eyes and entered a meditative state again, sitting motionless like three stone statues. As time passed, their brows gradually furrowed. 10 minutes later, Lin Chia opened his eyes to find that Qingyu and Jiang Er were already standing with unpleasant expressions. "You failed too." Lin Chia frowned. "Yes." Qingyu nodded. "I clearly touched the door to leave, but I couldn't push it open." "Me too," Jiang Er added immediately. "I was about to get out several times, but was blocked by that door. It feels like something is blocking our connection to the outside world. It seems our situations are the same." Lin Chia stood up from the ground helplessly. "Why didn't we have this feeling when we came in?" Lin Chia pondered for a moment. Perhaps when the two supreme gods were fighting, something went wrong, causing this place to be sealed. "Then what do we do? Are we going to be trapped here forever?" Jiang Er asked worriedly. "It won't come to that," and Qingyu immediately shook his head. "The Seraph went to hunt down that supreme god but will return. When he discovers we haven't returned to the ship, he will definitely come back to heaven to look for us, and then we can get out." "When will he come back?" "Hard to say, maybe a few hours, maybe a day, maybe several days. After all, he said that when he hunted Lucifer back then he chased him for 3 days and 3 nights. Hearing this, Jiang Er sighed helplessly. "Perhaps we don't have to just wait passively," Lin Chia suddenly spoke. And Qingyu and Jiang Er both turned to look at him. "If we can't get out of heaven, perhaps we can try a different path to leave, just like how that supreme god entered heaven." Hell. And Qingyu turned to look at the giant sword churning with deep red magma in the distance, frowning in thought for a moment. Indeed, since that supreme god could enter hell from the outside world, it means hell should have an exit to the outside. If conventional methods can't get us out of heaven, this path might work. But that's hell. Is it really feasible for us to just barge in? Jiang Er asked worriedly. Lin Chia and Qingyu exchanged glances, and after a moment both shook their heads. "Forget it, hell is after all the former divine realm of evil gods. Even if all demons above the divine realm have been slain, there's no telling what might remain. The risk is too great, we don't need to take that chance. After discussing for a while, the three sat down, looking at the yellowish sunset in the distance, and let out a long sigh. I'm worried that Shuaigu will be concerned if we're gone for so long, Lin Chia said anxiously. Speaking of which, it is strange that Shuaigu couldn't enter heaven, and Qingyu mused thoughtfully. What distractions could he possibly have? Jiang Er looked at them, hesitated for a moment, then tentatively spoke up. Haven't you noticed that since returning from the Pamir Plateau, Shuaiji's mood has been somewhat low? Lin Chia and Qingyu exchanged glances. Has it? Jiang Er. Lin Chia had nearly lost his life during the monument battle and was only revived a few days ago, so he wasn't clear about the squad's situation after returning from the Pamir Plateau. And Qingyu, after reaching the heavenly court, had devoted himself entirely to analyzing spiritual energy, not paying attention to anything else. Now hearing Jiang Er say this, both looked bewildered. I think there is. Although I wasn't completely sure before, now it seems he definitely has some mental burden. Jiang Er was silent for a moment, then sighed helplessly. And I think I understand where his troubles come from. Where from? You guys. Us. Lin Chia was confused. Why? Because all of you are just too monstrous. Jiang Er looked at the two of them and criticized seriously. A captain hailed as a once-in-a-century genius among night watchers. A vice-captain who can analyze and incorporate all things with unlimited potential. A black king sealed within a body capable of slaughtering ordinary gods. Chao Yuan, who is known to be above all beings but below gods. And Sister Jelon, who, though dormant, could ascend to godhood in one step upon awakening. Peng Peng's forbidden domain, though unknown, seems to have a significant background. Actually, with my and Zhuaiji's forbidden domains, we're qualified to stand in a special squad, but you all are advancing too fast. So fast that I feel we'll forever be at the bottom of the team. Jiang Er slowly lowered her head, her expression more downcast than ever before. Back on the Pamir Plateau, watching you all charge into battle, Zhuaigu and I felt terrible. Even though we knew rushing in wouldn't help much, it felt like we no longer even had the right to stand beside you. I'm younger, so it's understandable if I can't keep up with your levels, but Zhuaigu has been with you all along. He's naturally somewhat proud, and now he can only watch as the gap between you grows larger and larger. He must feel even worse than I do. Hearing this, Lin Chia and Qingyu fell silent. They had never considered this problem. In this team, what they didn't lack were prodigies, whether it was the mysterious Jialon Lin Chia with his Asylum of the Gods, or Qingyu who could analyze the spiritual energy of the heavenly court. In comparison, Shen Qingzhu and Jiang Er's own brilliant light had been completely overshadowed by them. After Jiang Er pointed this out, Lin Chia could imagine how tormented and self-reproachful Shen Qingzhu must feel now, given his personality. Shen Qingzhu wasn't the type to be content with being at the bottom, nor would he shamelessly beg a Chinese god to take him as an agent for power. All he could do was hide all this pain in his heart, quietly standing at the back of the team to support them, pretending nothing was wrong. It's my fault. As the captain, I should have noticed earlier. Lin Chia's eyes filled with bitterness. And Qingyu recalled when Bai Li Pangpang and Shen Qingzhu went out alone in the heavenly court, and spoke helplessly. It seems Pangpang noticed Zhuaiji's abnormality before any of us. He's actually the most perceptive one. When we get back to the ship, we'll have a good talk with Shuaigu, Lin Chia said seriously. We're all brothers. Whatever issues there are, we can talk about them and solve them together. Yes. And Qingyu looked at the gradually setting sun in the distance and nodded. Death silence hung over the vast sea when two muffled thunderclaps suddenly erupted. Shen Qingzhu, who had been sitting inside the exploration ship drifting with the ocean current, opened his eyes and looked through the porthole at the distant sea surface. He saw two figures, one white and one golden, break through a gap from nothingness, quickly soaring into the clouds, streaking across the sky and disappearing. Michael. Shen Qingzhu sensed the aura of that golden light, his eyes narrowing slightly. Why had Michael come out? Who was he hunting down? What changes had occurred in heaven? A series of questions flashed through his mind as he ran to the deck and looked around. Besides the endless dark fog, nothing else could be seen. In this near-blind visibility, Shen Qingzhu didn't even know where the ship had drifted to. The ship began to accelerate forward with the increasingly turbulent water flow, and the surrounding temperature gradually dropped. In just a matter of seconds, It felt like being plunged into an ice cave. Something's wrong. Shin Qingzhu frowned and snapped his fingers toward the sky. Snap. A ball of intense fire suddenly appeared above the exploration ship, dispelling the surrounding darkness. With this firelight, Shin Qingzhu could barely make out the situation within 10 meters of the ship. His peripheral vision caught something beneath the ship, and his pupils contracted slightly. At some point the black seawater had turned blood red. The once vast sea now seemed like they had entered some kind of mountain gorge with towering rock walls on both sides. Cold air continuously seeped out from the mountain bodies on both sides, and strange corpses floated on the blood-colored river, emitting a nauseating odor. This was definitely not a normal sea area. Shin Qingzhu suddenly turned to look at the stern. In the hazy fog he couldn't see the path they had come from. He waved his hand forcefully, and the intense fireball hovering above his head instantly flew along the gorge, illuminating a corner of the fog they had come through. He saw a huge spatial gap hanging quietly between the mountain gorge. Outside the gap was the normal sea area covered in fog. Beyond the gap was this cold world flowing with blood-colored seawater and floating corpses. Shin Qingzhu's face immediately darkened. This gap must have been left by the two supreme gods who had broken through some space just now. After the gap appeared, the direction of the ocean currents in the surrounding sea area changed, actually carrying the exploration ship all the way in. If Shin Qingzhu hadn't noticed the temperature change in that pitch-black fog, he might not have discovered it even after 10 minutes. Shin Qingzhu stood at the stern, his gaze sweeping across the narrow gorge, his mind racing. The distance between the mountains on both sides of the gorge was too short. Even if he controlled the exploration ship now, it would be impossible to turn the bow around in this terrain and sail back to the normal sea area. He could choose to abandon the ship and use his ability to temporarily fly back through the gap. But without the ship as a foothold at sea, once his mental power was exhausted, he would passively fall into the seawater and wait for death. The only method now was to wait until the exploration ship sailed out of this gorge and entered a wider body of water where they could turn around, then go full power against the current, passing through the spatial gap to return. Shin Qingzhu looked toward the bow. There should be no fog in this unknown space. The fog from the outside world was pouring in through the gap and gradually thinning out. The visibility around was gradually returning, and he could vaguely see the situation ahead of the ship. Gray-white snowflakes drifted with the cold wind, falling onto the exploration ship. Shin Qingzhu reached out to catch one, examined it for a moment and realized it was a piece of burnt ash. His brow furrowed. What is this thing? Boom. A dull, massive sound came from the blood-colored seawater beneath the ship. Then this exploration ship weighing several tons was violently flipped from the sea surface as if something had rammed it from below. Shin Qingzhu's pupils suddenly contracted. It's been almost an hour already. Jiang Er's form drifted in the sky of heaven for a moment before landing back at the edge of the broken palace. Just as she was about to say something, she noticed that both Lin Qie and An Qingyu were frowning deeply. What's wrong with you two? Jiang Er, don't you feel like the sky is getting darker? An Qingyu stretched out his hand, pointing to the gradually dimming sunset in the distance. A darkness was climbing up from the horizon, from that entrance to hell rolling with magma, like nightfall after dusk. Under the gaze of the three, the light of heaven was disappearing at a visible speed. How can this be? Jiang Er's brow also furrowed. Didn't the seraph say there is no night here? We were originally able to leave this place but we failed. Night shouldn't exist here but it has appeared. Lin Qie's eyes narrowed, his expression somewhat grave. It seems that heaven must have undergone some kind of change and it's definitely not a good thing. Could it be related to the supreme god hiding in hell? Possibly. As the three were speaking, the yellowish sunlight had completely disappeared, and endless darkness enveloped the sky of heaven, emitting a suffocating pressure. Above the sky, gray-white snowflakes fell one after another onto the land of heaven. Lin Qie reached out to catch one, his brow tightly knit. Ash? Where is this ash coming from? An Qingyu held a piece of ash in front of his eyes, a gray light flashing in his pupils. His eyes narrowed and he immediately flicked the ash away from his palm, pinching the bridge of his nose with 2 fingers, seeming somewhat fatigued. Don't touch it, it belongs to the Cthulhu deities. What? Lin Qie's eyes contracted slightly, and with a wave of his hand, a A gust of wind immediately dispersed all the ash hovering above the three of them. How could something from the Cthulhu deities appear here? I don't know, but I heard their murmurings from it. Although much weaker than in the fishing village, this kind of thing can only come from them. And Qingyu shook his head. Lin Chia stood in place, light flickering in his eyes as if pondering something. Could it be Odin? He murmured. When they were on the Pamir Plateau, Lin Chia had heard the Queen Mother of the West speak about the truth of Odin. Now with the simultaneous appearance of these two major elements, supreme gods and Cthulhu, Odin was the only one he could think of. So what do we do now? Zhang Er asked. We can't stay here any longer. Lin Chia spoke firmly. We don't know when the Seraph will return, and now that things from the Cthulhu gods have appeared, continuing to stay here could lead to unknown variables. We have to take a risk. Lin Chia's gaze penetrated through the increasingly dense ash snowflakes, landing on the gap leading to hell at the horizon. A cloud streaked across the black sky of heaven, and that mountain-like giant broken sword became increasingly clear in Lin Chia and his companion's vision. This massive sword pierced from hell into heaven, carving a ferocious gap several kilometers long in heaven's land. Countless magma patterns flowed on the sword's surface, like a slanted volcano. As the three approached, they could even clearly see numerous angel corpses hanging from the sword's tip. To think a single sword could pierce into heaven. Had the demons of hell reached such a level of power back then? Looking at the countless angel corpses at the giant sword's tip, and Qingyu couldn't help but sigh. That was a divine realm with its own divine system origin. Strictly speaking, it was already an independent divine system. As many people in the world who yearn for heaven, just as many fear hell. For them, this is also a different kind of faith, Lin Chia explained. The origin of hell. The three landed at the foot of the giant sword. As soon as they touched the ground, they felt a cold chill surging from the hell fissures around the sword. By now, the white ashes scattered in the sky had already covered heaven's surface like a thin veil. Lin Chia's lips parted slightly as he murmured a poem, and a whirlwind swept all the ashes in front of them to both sides, clearing a path to the hell gap. Let's go. Lin Chia looked back at heaven gradually being buried by ashes. Time to descend into hell. Although I understand what you mean, it sounds a bit ominous when you say it like that. And Qingyu spoke helplessly as he walked to the gap beside the giant sword and jumped down. Zhang Er's figure followed closely behind, floating into it. Just as Lin Chia was about to jump down, after a moment's hesitation, he dipped his fingertip in night color and left a message for Michael beside the hell gap before leaping into hell. Their figures fell through the endless darkness, occasionally passing broken heaven palaces, fractured fiery peaks, and countless angel and demon corpses floating as if in zero gravity around the three. At the collision boundary between heaven and hell, laws and order seemed to have fallen into chaos. Only countless white ashes spiraled like tornadoes from hell up to heaven, spreading to every corner. The whirlwind circled around Lin Chia and his two companions, escorting them through this junction area before their figures flashed and disappeared into the hell gap. What they didn't notice was that one of the ashes floated down with the wind onto a broken angel corpse, dissolving like a snowflake upon contact. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. After an unknown amount of time, a strange red flesh ball bulged from the center of the angel's forehead. As the flesh ball split open from the center, a red eye composed of countless tiny red insects quickly rotated to survey the surroundings. In the endless darkness, these strange red insect eyes were opening one after another, like a red tide gradually covering the entire sky. Wild winds swept across the crimson land, stirring up piles of ashes as three figures slowly descended from the sky, arriving in hell. This place is different from what I imagined, and Qingyu stood on the broken ground looking around. Under the deep red sky, mountains flowing with flames were scattered on the horizon, and the air was filled with deathly dust. How is it different? How should I put it? It doesn't seem as terrifying as the legends say. Indeed, after all, the demons who lived in hell are all dead now. No matter how gloomy the environment is, it's ultimately not alive. Lin Chia looked around but couldn't see any gap leading to the outside world within his field of vision. It seemed that the gap must be quite narrow and difficult to find. Hell is so vast, how will we find the exit gap? Searching bit by bit won't work. We need some luck. Lin Chia casually picked up a sharp stone from the ground, tossed it in his palm a few times, and prepared to throw it to decide their direction. Purely relying on luck? Jiang Er couldn't help but speak up. In such a vast place, the probability of randomly picking a direction and finding the exit gap is too slim, isn't it? That's exactly why it needs to be slim. Lin Chia smiled slightly as a golden light flashed in his palm. The more impossible it is, the more likely a miracle will occur. He closed his eyes and threw the stone in his palm. The stone rolled several times on the ground before hitting a wall and stopping. The sharp end of the stone pointed in a certain direction in hell. Let's go, it's in that direction. Lin Chia dusted off his hands as a cloud formed under his feet, carrying the three of them soaring into the sky. The somersault cloud soared under the deep red sky as patches of ash gathered in the air, flowing like clouds. Lin Chia drove the cloud while maintaining the sky's poet, crashing into the endless ashes. The fierce wind circled around the three, preventing any ash from touching their bodies. As their vision was obscured by endless ashes, all the three could see was a sea of gray-white. The ashes in hell seem more concentrated than those in heaven, and Qingyu pondered. It seems this is where the anomaly began. After we return, we need to report this situation to the heavenly court immediately. The reappearance of Cthulhu's power is a... Lin Chia stopped mid-sentence, his pupils suddenly contracting as if he sensed something. Seeing Lin Chia abruptly stop, and Qingyu was about to speak when the somersault cloud beneath their feet suddenly swerved sharply to the side, making a right-angle turn that nearly threw him off. Several invisible threads shot out from Qinyu's sleeve, forcibly pulling him back onto the somersault cloud. The next moment, a giant black hand reached out from the ash cloud where they had just been, missing them by a hair's breadth from crushing them along with the cloud. And Qingyu stood up on the somersault cloud, cold sweat seeping from his temples. What was that thing? I don't know. Lin Chia's expression, far from relaxing after the narrow escape, became even more grave. But there's far more than one of these things in the clouds. He piloted the somersault cloud, weaving like a snake between the cloud layers as black lightning bolts shot out from the gray-white cloud bodies, surrounding Lin Chia and his companions from all directions. And Qingyu barely stabilized himself on the cloud, adjusted his glasses and looked back intently. As those black lightning bolts drew closer to the somersault cloud, their forms gradually became clearer. They were ferocious monsters with fleshy wings on their backs, their bodies and limbs flowing with magma-like red patterns, each standing 5 or 6 meters tall. Their fleshy wings beat rapidly like fly wings, moving at incredible speed.